The MTDCNC Podcast, sponsored by Langley Alloys, unique metals for demanding applications, providing first-class performance and an international service.
Simon, welcome to the MTD Podcast.
Thank you very much.
This is the first time we've had yourself on one of our features, so it's good to see you. We've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, you're in a new role, and I believe you've had a pretty busy last month or so, haven't you? What have you been up to?
So day one started down in Birmingham. Went to see Lee. And
it's important to say that you've just taken on a new role at Starrag, but that's not the exciting bit, is it? It's the technology.
So I've started at Starrag obviously this year as the UK Sales Manager for Aerospace. So my first day was catch the train down to Birmingham to meet Lee Scott in the office and met all the team down there. So that was day one. Got all the computer kit and phone and everything. Day two was on a plane over to Bumotec. So
it's fair to say you had a pretty busy start, didn't you?
Yes.
I mean, I've been following some of your posts on social media, and having had the pleasure of going to some of the places you've been in the last 4 weeks, your brain must just be be buzzing.
After the first week, you've been to that facility. Just going around, seeing how they build the machines up, the taking the parts in the hand, scraping them to get them to fit within microns and repeat. And then they go through and, the detail and everything that they put into the machines. But what came across was the team over there. The guys have got so much experience. Most of them have been there, the ones that I dealt with, pretty much all their working life, so they've come up through the company and been service guys and then into the rest of the team and the apps guys, there's so much experience in their field. So, yeah.
Well, when I saw your sort of journey over the last few weeks, it reminded me in some ways to when I first started selling machine tools. And I worked at Bridgeport, and they had a really intensive it was a 6-week program where I spent, albeit it was just in one factory, but I spent like a week on hand scraping, then I spent a week on assembly, then I spent a week in the spindle area, then I spent a week. So I got a really familiar with all aspects of the machine. I don't often see that sometimes now in machine tool sales. Often people are just brought into a role, and it's like, right, here's your computer, here's your mobile phone, or here's your car, and go and get on with it. Yeah. And I appreciate some companies don't have the same amount as factories as Starrag, but what you've been through there, it must have been a real education.
Yes, yeah, because obviously I've got a history in machine sales, but also I've been a user, for quite a number of years, actually writing programs. But I think the philosophy at Starrag is get them into the factory, get them to see all the machines and how they're built, and meet all the team. Mm. Again, even though it's quite a big company, it's a group of small teams, and they work very well together. So it's actually getting over there, understanding, how the machines are built, why are they so good, and back to the principles of the accuracy and how they control this thermal, movement, and which happens to every machine, but how they control it in the design of the machine. And how they compensate it out if required, and again, so getting over there, actually seeing it. I'd like to have had a go at scraping, but I don't think I'd let me anywhere near it. But you just look at it, you think, it'd be cool to have a go and just see, because apparently some guys can, some guys can't, and you can understand. Yeah, but actually seeing the accuracy and how the guys do it, and then they're blowing it up, and they're just getting that lovely pattern over the top, and you're just like,
How do people do that on a daily basis? I wonder whether they have that's just one of their tasks, and then they go and do something else and come back, because to have the concentration to continually achieve those results.
You've got to assume that they're also doing other things, but it might be that some guys are happy in the zone, aren't they? Yeah. Get your music on and off you go, sort of thing. Yeah. But
so at this point, but I do want to talk about these factories, because we've both been to them, and there's so much to talk about with them. But what is your role then at Starrag? Tell us a little bit about that.
So my role is aerospace sales. So I'm going to be looking after all the aerospace customers across the UK and eventually Ireland. So it's really working with those to to understand their requirements and
is there a better person to do that than someone like yourself with what we'll pull out now from your experience? Because the fit is quite
there's always going to be someone better, but at the moment I'm the guy. So
so my point being is your build up to being in this role. Tell us about your experience.
So I started as a technical apprentice in 1991. Yes, I am that old. So I did a 3-year apprenticeship at a company called International Combustion, which actually was bought by Rolls-Royce after 6 months. So I think similar to you, you started at NEI. Yeah. So I moved sort of from the apprenticeship, did a bit of work on site with power stations, and then after that I moved across to aerospace into the drawing office. So I was actually modelling parts for casings, and then wasn't satisfied with that, actually wanted to get hands-on, so I actually applied and moved down to the main works facility at Rolls-Royce, where I wrote programs for starting with 3 axes and then 5 axes and then eventually mill-turn machines. So sort of from the 90s all the way through and just did different roles and worked my way through the grading system at Rolls-Royce to be at the end I was a global process owner for machining, and I led a lot of projects developing new technology. And
so this is perfect, really, because what you'll be talking to potential customers and clients about is everything that you would have done from a production engineering perspective, I guess, during your working life. I mean, there's some achievements that you were telling me about earlier, that parts in the sky that you've clearly been involved in from start to finish. Yeah,
so some of the projects I've worked on, Eurofighter, EJ200 intercase, bringing that from a load of separate operations, milling, turning, drilling, grinding, to one mill turn machine. So we brought that all together. So I've worked with some of the best guys in the industry to do that sort of thing. So and again we've developed many different techniques. Adaptive machining for bliss machining, which is where I first sort of met the guys at Starrag. So Rolls-Royce used to use the Starrag machines for the adaptive machining of bliss. And again, the first mill-turn machine going into Rolls-Royce was a Starrag machine, doing a V2 500 rear case, which is still in the facility at Rorschach in the front foyer, which most people don't understand what it is, and I can tell them exactly about that part because I helped develop that.
And I think that's quite unique. I mean, I think it's really unique. And let's talk about Rorschach, because that's some place, isn't it? We go to the Aerospace Technology Days every June, and in fact we go in there this year, I think on the 23rd and 24th. I'm sure you'll be there as well. Some of the kit being made and going through there is really eye-opening or jaw-dropping, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite nice. As you walk in, the first thing you see are machines actually cutting customer parts. So we're cutting aerofoils for different customers. We've got the machines there. We're doing aluminium structural parts on the machines. So we're actually able to make parts for people as well. And then you go through that, and then you've got development machines. So you've got guys there using test equipment to understand the machine and what any tweaks that need to be done. And again, some of the guys there, guy Tim Day, I've worked with him in the past in the Blisk area. So there's a lot of people there that I've worked with in the past as well, which is quite nice. So 20 years ago, but again, back to see them again. But the experience there, and then as you go through, you see the Echo Speeds being built and the STCs. So
I think that was one of the things, because the first time I went to Rorschach, I expected to walk into a shiny showroom with, the machines in pristine condition, showing off, demonstrations, but maybe not cutting metal. It was an event where they were attracting a lot of people from around the world. So the presentation of everything I thought was just going to be kind of gleaming. But you walk in there, and it's a factory environment where they really are putting the machines through their paces. You see all the different kind of models and all the rest of it, and it's got that real factory feel, hasn't it? Yeah. Which I think,
to me, the guy, they're not just building machines and letting someone else do the cutting. They're actually doing the development and the cutting there, which is brilliant. It means that they're actually tuning the machine to suit the process.
I remember seeing a cut on some Inconel on one of the HEC machines, which 63mm depth of cut. And I mean, you could put your hand on the side of the machine still, and there was still no vibrations, and it was just ploughing through it. And that was all down to like the hydrostatic guides and all of this sort of stuff, which I guess you've seen and
the counterbalances. So if you take the ball screw off a z-axis or y-axis, we're the other way up. So the head will just sit mid-limit. And you think, oh, that's just brilliant. So all the ball screw's doing is just taking that, it's just driving the cut rather than actually lifting the whole head up. So
and the echo speed, which is there during the tech days. You look at the head technology in that. I mean, that's something else as well.
Oh yeah, the parallel kinematic. I mean, I've seen it from a distance, and now I've actually stood right next to it. And
you almost look at it and go, "How on earth does all that work?"
And who came up with it? And then you understand the history of it, and obviously. Worked with Paul. He took me through all the history of that because he came over for a few days, and that design has not changed since the guy came up with it. But why would you change something that is, there's so many of those machines around the world making all the flying parts. Yeah,
well, that was again for me looking at the comparison between this kind of 63 mil, Inconel cut compared to the Echo Speed, which was then machined in aluminium at extremely high speeds, and you're filling up these buckets of or bins of swarf in seconds, and you just look at the two types of different machining applications, and it just shows the variety, I guess, that's on show.
And again, they've taken that development, with a high, 120 kilowatt spindle that's in the Echo Speed, and they've put it into the STC as well, so you can have that as the X machine. So you've got that same power and metal removal, but in a smaller machine with a pallet changer on it. So if your parts aren't big enough for an Echo Speed, you can use the STC. Which for me, and I've not seen that sort of thing before in what I've been exposed to. That you've got that such high power spindle, so you can really. Go for it with the roughing and the finishing, and you get the surface finish as well.
And you mentioned blisks earlier. One of the things I saw at the technology days last year was where they were printing the blades and then machining them afterwards. Did you see that?
Yes.
How fascinating is that?
That's
What can you tell me about that? Because I mean, I did a post when I was at the Tech Days, and it had thousands of likes on it, loads of engagement and all the rest. It's
interesting you mentioned
loads of questions as well. And
that actual technology that came out of some of my background actually in Bliss. So
let's describe it for people.
So within a Bliss, you've obviously got the hub and then you've got the blades off it. But if you for certain size Bliss, instead of actually milling them from solid, what you would do is make the blades separately, and you'd friction weld the blade onto the hub. So the idea behind using the welding approach is because the disc itself is a critical rotating part, but the blades are sensitive, which means they're not to the same restrictions as the hub.
So the hub is more critical?
Yeah, because of the hoop strength that you require in the hub. Right. So within that and the fillet region. So what you can actually do is take a forging. You could machine out the fillet region but actually then weld the blade above that fillet so that you're out the high stressed area. So you can actually use that as a way of obviously reducing the cycle time, meaning you can make bigger Bliss without either going through the whole process of developing a welding technique for that and making the separate blades and bringing them all in. So for early development or possibly production in the future, you can actually start with a hub and then just weld on the actual blade, to a stock, and then just finish machine that.
So is this in the air at the moment? What's the...
That wouldn't be in the air at the moment. One of the reasons I looked at that in the past was as an early development. So if aerospace companies are always looking at how quick they can develop things. So, and with a Bliss, normally the lead time is very long because you've got you're on the small Bliss you mill from solid, so they're not so bad. But on the big Bliss, obviously you've got the whole process of machining the blades, developing all the welding process, all the tooling. So if you can actually start with that and weld the blades on. You can obviously.
So why is it not in the sky though at the moment?
It's not because of the validation. So if we started on that journey, we'd have to get involved with an OEM like Rolls-Royce or GE and actually get them to do the testing on there. So you'd start with all fatigue testing of the properties of the material.
Do you see any reason why it couldn't pass all of the validation?
No. From what I've seen, the properties that you get from the WAM process and other technologies for additive, there's no reason why it can't. But obviously, as a designer, you sat there. It's a brave man sometimes that says, "Right, we're going to use this brand new technology and have it flying around in the air." So it's got to go through all the right testing. But there's no reason why it couldn't move on to, let's maybe a development engine or a ground test initially, just to see if it's got the cycles on it that it needs.
I think it was something like 50% cheaper, 30%. 50% faster to make, 30% cheaper, or there's some numbers like that. I can't remember which way around.
Basically, you're not getting all that material and then cutting it, using all the carbide, and then putting all the swarf in the bin. Yeah. So if you can remove all that, obviously you can save time. Yeah. So
Rorschach is just one of several factories that you'd have been to in the last month. But what about the area? Let's forget the machines for a minute. What a place! Well, what a place in Switzerland, just for people watching. I mean,
obviously this time of year, I was tempted to bring the wife over.
I've only been in the summer, so was there a lot of snow around?
There wasn't much snow, but my wife decided to go to Paris instead with my daughter. So I spent the weekend in Switzerland. So I got the train across, which was quite nice.
Because it's right on Lake Constance, isn't it?
Yeah. So I just took a nice walk round. Again, I'd seen so much on week one. Yeah. I thought, let's not overdo it. Let's just relax, take it all in, and then get ready for week 2, week 3, and week 4.
and I mean, your role, what we spoke about, aerospace. Okay, perfect for the Rorschach facility, but so are obviously some of the other factories. I mean, we take the other one, Vladin's, that I went to I went there in January or February last year with Lee, where they make the Bumotec machines
and the SIP.
And the SIP machines,
the Chris's stuff. So,
gosh, I mean, the Bumotecs as well. Picking on those, what machines they are.
Yeah.
I mean,
again, and some, I've actually got some of the parts that the guys make on there, and the detail, the accuracy, what they can do on there, and cutting carbide, for instance, the finish they can get, they can grind on them, the part transfer. So
we're talking again for people that haven't seen. Just explain what the Bumotec machines are.
So Bumotec, their background is sort of jewellery and watches, high end goods, but they've moved more now into medical and some aerospace as well. So basically, it's I suppose a milling machine with a turning function on, so you can actually bar feed up to 65 mil down the side of the vertical machines. But then you've got a spindle that will move all the way around, and you've got the part catcher, so we can actually hold the part in many different ways on vices in a truck to pull it out. And the spindle is 40,000 RPM as standard, pretty much. Yeah. So again, what you can do with that and the detail and the accuracy.
And that was one of the things we tried to get across on our channel a year ago. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to find some of the videos we did last year, where we actually took. In fact, we created, I think it was about 16 short features, and the idea was to really show off not just the machine and the what you talk about its functionality, but the actual applications that it makes. And it was incredible to see some of these watch parts that were being machined and how fast they were being machined. Also, there was like a gyroscope and all parts for a gyroscope that was being made. Knee joints or hip joints, knee parts, what's the femoral balls, all of these things that you'd be representative of the medical sector, but the luxury goods industry as well. And by looking at the diversity of all these parts, they all had a lot of things in common, which were either really great surface finishes and end results, incredible, but also very complex, high tolerance parts that need to be machined quickly in volumes in a lot of instances.
And consistent. I mean, one of the things that you see from those machines is that consistent. So, you're doing a long batch, and the first one, and the guys have just got it nailed on how they control the machine. They're checking the tools on the way in, on the way out, the sister tool inside of it. The way they design the tools so that they're always on centre, turning, all that stuff. It's just they've just nailed it to me down to the detail. So I'm quite happy that anything that's small and complex, we can go to a Bumotec and it'll do a good job. And
I mean that place equally beautiful as well, nestled right in. I mean the factory there,
the food as well. I was spoiled. I mean, whether it's
I'm trying to remember where we stayed when we went to Fradin's. I remember going up. I remember we did 2 days filming. That's right. We did 2 days filming and it was February. And Lee was like, right, we're on the way back to the airport. But actually, we've got a couple of hours. There's a cable car that can take us right up the mountains. Did you do that?
I didn't do that, no.
I'm not a fan of being in enclosed spaces. And I was like, and Ian, who's our cameraman, and Lee were like, come on, we need to go up in this and look at where we can get up to the top. And the first one we pulled up at, luckily, it was like shut. I was like, oh, I'm not so bothered about that. Do you know what? Anyway, there's another one. We went a little bit further up the road, and this one was open, and we got in it. And as much as I disliked the kind of being in that cabin going up to the top, when we got there, the views were just amazing.
But I mean, just drive around, the views are fantastic. I mean, again, you just go out for a lunch somewhere locally. It's almost like a cafe, but the standard.
Yeah.
Just like, can't wait to visit again.
So was there much snow when you were?
No, when I was there, it was.
That's 2 years in a row.
Yeah. So early Januay. Yeah, I thought I'd got my salopettes. I was all geared up. Literally, ended up lugging it around all week. But I thought, well, I'm not going to get caught out cold.
So how many factories have you been to then in the last 4 weeks? Bearing in mind you only got back about a week ago, didn't you?
So four factories. So 2 in Switzerland, 2 in Germany. So I went. So I did the first 2 weeks as one block. So I stayed the weekend. Went to Rorschach. Then I came home. Went back to Chemnitz, so flew into Berlin and drove down to Chemnitz where the Heckert machines are. Yeah. That's an impressive factory. Yes. What a massive factory. But
did you see that big red sort of gangway? It's like it's like a tunnel.
When I walked down it, they'd actually got the other doors open to the neighbour's factory, so you literally I can't even see the end.
Yeah, and the size of it is just monstrous. And you say that, so that's where they're making the Heckert machines.
Yep. Yeah. So they've got the Heckert machines in build there. So,
and what do you think about that range? Because we've talked a lot about the compact range. Yeah. And it's been part of, I guess, an exercise we've been working on with Starrag to talk about the competitiveness of those machines, but equally the productivity gains.
I'd come across them once before, but actually going and seeing them and understanding the spec of the machine and how they're built and what you can do on them, I'm surprised there are not a lot more of those in the UK. The option with the spindles, we can actually put a 30,000 RPM spindle on a Heckert machine for doing aluminium work, which has got something like 83 kilowatts, that's a big spindle in a small machine. So again, and so you've got some high metal removal rates on a smaller machine, which is going to compete, against anything else on the market there.
I think it's been a mission, I guess, for a couple of years, which is beginning to take shape, is to try and stop people thinking that the Starrag Heckert brand is something that's out of their reach, which is not affordable to them, or is for Rolls-Royce or some of the companies that we mentioned. But that isn't really the case, is it? And that's what I've seen by certainly some of the visitors that have come on some of the tech days because we went to Chemnitz in November last year to one of the tech days there. And the clientele there was very much your kind of, owner, driver of a machine shop.
Again,
just looking
to me, it's just a sensible option. If you look at the machines they've got installed and how long they last and the quality of them, it's just, to me, it's a sensible investment that you spend on that. It competitively priced, perhaps might be on the high end. Yeah. But what you're getting for that, and if the machine's always running and making parts, it'll pay for itself.
Did you see the H100?
Yeah, I saw the new H. That's a big machine.
Big. Yeah. Did it have that automation cell still on it?
No, it didn't. It was just a twin pallet option. But it's for a single lift machine. So I think that's about the maximum you'll get in a lorry. Right. But that's going to be an impressive machine.
And did they have that? Because there was a fixturing solution they had there, which was for the automotive sector, because there was a lot about transport and industry.
Again, they're very strong. Their background is in the engine and transmission manufacturing, so they've got a lot of expertise and knowledge there. And again, that's why they can tool change some very long tools as standard. Yeah. And on the bigger machines, I think we can go up to 1.5 metre tool change, which is unheard of.
And I was also impressed to see the company actually thinking about bringing machinery through for stock. I mean, one of the points that we often highlight, which is clearly coming out on this podcast, is your solutions ability. The fact that, if not just yourself, but Starrag as a company is very much about taking a product and gearing a solution around it, a manufacturing solution around it. But coupled with that now, there is a focus on building machines for stock to be able to satisfy the requirements of people that need things quite quickly, which I didn't really know about the Heckert brand until a year or so ago. But when you go to Chemnitz, you see, I think we looked at an X50, we looked at an H50, and there was machines that were there ready to go.
Yeah, again, if you go through, it's quite a modular build. The H and the X are pretty much the same machine. It's just the table's different. But obviously, if you start from scratch and you bring the parts in and assemble it, the lead time's going to be quite long. So, what the guys are doing there is actually bringing some through earlier, so that they get to a point where, if you want some changes that can be done, maybe spindle or whatever. But other than that, we can actually try and shorten that lead time. Yeah. Some people, the project comes along and they want something, pretty quick. So, to be able to get that standard of machine on a short delivery is. Could be a good win for us.
And do you see that fast stem system? You must have done.
I did see the fast stem system, next to the Droop+Rein that's in build as well.
Is that any further? I mean, when we went there was just the foundations had just been dug. And it looked like there's going to be a huge installation there.
Yeah, the rails are on, so I mean that's going to be impressive.
This was showing, and again, there is a video on our YouTube channel from our visit there. They were talking about the investment in that plant and the fact that machine is obviously for machining parts for the machines, isn't it? But it was huge. Yeah, it was huge.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, I didn't see exactly how big it was, but that's going to give us the ability to machine parts for not only that factory, but I think they're all going to be machining parts for Bielefeld as well.
And when you look at, I think what I see when I go to companies like that is when we look at what we've got here as a manufacturing base, we don't have anything of that size and scale. No, really, it was very, very few and far between.
And there's so many of them as well. As you go round, as you drive down the road, you recognise other companies as well. That's where they are.
Yeah. And a lot of the employees in these places, well, for the local area, they are big employers. I mean, you take Chemnitz, the size of that place, they must employ hundreds or thousands of people, I guess.
They do, yeah. So. But again, it's great for the area. I think it's interesting, that factory apparently used to be even bigger, and they used to make
How could it be bigger? There's a drone shot on
every nut and bolt as well, apparently. But
really?
Obviously now they buy them in, which is why it shrunk down. But apparently it used to be that whole area was just Heckert. So,
but if there is a drone shot on one of the video, or in fact it appears on a lot of the videos we did there in November, and you look at the size of the plant, I mean, it's just massive. Where was the other place in Germany you went? Heading north.
So went up to Bielefeld.
So what do they produce in Bielefeld?
So they do the Droop+Rein machines. And the Doris now as well. So they're moving across from one of their other factories, Mönchengladbach. So the Doris have moved across there. So they've got the new machine in there in build.
The new VTL.
The new VTL, in build, and I think that had done some test cuts.
Okay.
So apparently the guys were quite impressed with it. So
right. So
again,
that's on our agenda, I think, from an MTD perspective, to go and see sometime in the next few months. I remember going there a couple of years ago, and they had that huge VTL, which was going into It was for the wind.
Yeah.
I think it was being delivered in Norway, I think it was, or somewhere up there. And I saw the size of the machine. In fact, we walked up the stairs right to the top and did a shoot at the top. And you just look at it. I cannot remember the size of the table, if I'm honest.
I think it's 11 metres.
It was massive.
But it's on an 8 metre, so the actual base is an 8 metre base. They got one of those in there while I was there, so I stood next to that. Wow, that's impressive. It's just massive. I mean, the motors, 2 motors driving it, and there's quite an interesting fact that the fans that cool the motors on that are the same size as the motors for the other machines in the group.
Yeah.
So
and
they're just the fans to cool them. So
like EMO, for example, this year, right, I'm sure Starrag will be there. It must be difficult for them to think about what we're gonna show, because we've got such a range, a diverse range of machines from the different parts of the group. Clearly, a lot of them are huge, so you can't just bring those sorts of technologies onto a stand, or easily anyway. So it must be quite difficult for them to understand or to try and get a message across about.
I suppose
these differences.
I mean, one of the strengths at Droop+Rein is the head technology. They design and build their own heads in house.
Yeah.
And when you go in that factory, you see all the guys building the heads, and each guy has his own head, start to finish. Yeah. And hands it over. So I think, to show a head at that sort of thing is great, because that's one of the defining things that they've got.
And the skill in doing that, again, it's a bit like the scraping we talk about. I remember seeing these guys, and I thought to myself, so much could go wrong in the build of that, couldn't it? In my mind, I look at it and I just think, concentration levels that you must.
It's that German mentality, though, isn't it? It's going to be right because I've done it right.
Yeah, but I just.
Whereas the British are always like, something could go wrong, but I think if you're German, it's like, no, it will be right.
Yeah, But you've to do that time and time again. I've done this one, signed it off, I'm on to another one. What's the achievement you could look for within that? Can I make this one even better than the last one, or is it to a certain standard? I really admire.
Well, I think that there is a standard, and obviously, like a lot of companies, what Starrag are doing is trying to improve that standard and get it, as close to zero as you can. Again, because that's when you're buying a Droop+Rein, that's what you're buying, that accuracy and repeatability, and the machines they've got in the field are literally running 24/7. To that high accuracy all the time.
So it's fair to say you've had a pretty busy few weeks.
Yeah.
What's next, Simon?
Again, I've met all the guys. So next, I've actually got to get out and go and see some people. So, but obviously we've got quite an installed base in the UK. So I want to go and see some of the installed machines and understand from the people, what they're using them for, and is there anything we can help with? Because if we can get more out of existing equipment, obviously that's good for them, and hopefully they'll see the benefit then, and we can talk about any new projects. So
cool.
And again, obviously with my background, hopefully they can lean on me a bit to say, Simon, how would you do this?
And there is a couple of events that are happening this year, isn't there? That might be worth people knowing if they are in the sectors or are interested in the technologies. And there is also a couple of new machines. There's the X70 and the X90, isn't it?
Yes.
Did you pick those out?
I've seen those. They've been muted around what they're taking over from.
What are they? You got detail?
So the X70, that's taken over from the HEC 630, so it's 630 pallet machine, and then the 90's taken over from the HEC 800. So I'm not exactly sure of the naming behind it, but
the X70 and X90.
So the 90 will take over from the 800,
and you can have 5-axis turning.
4-axis, 5-axis turning, turn. So
and there is the technology days this year at
Rorschach in June,
23rd, 24th, around that sort of time.
So the invites are going out at the moment, and I'll be when I'm talking to people, if people are interested in going, obviously I'll be inviting them across, because I think that's quite an interesting tech day. I actually went, as I reminded Lee, I went in 2016.
Did you?
As a customer. Yeah. So I've still got the penknife and the bag, which I dug out of the cupboard. So that's a really interesting few days.
What was the entertainment that you had at the end of the day after?
So we did a boat trip across the lake, which was quite nice, and then a meal. But obviously I remembered all the talks from all the different. I think they have guest speakers on from industry. So
yeah, I've been to a couple of them. The last one they had in the evening, they had a function in big aircraft museum, and there was a draw, and for all the people that were there, the winner got to go up in an old
cool.
kind of, I can't remember the plane it was, but I just remember it was a beautiful day, beautiful clear evening, and you just thought, wow, how incredible would that be to have won that. I didn't get put in the draw because we were media.
No, I'm assuming I won't get put in the draw now. But
I might have to go as a customer next time. Who knows? Simon, really good luck with your new role. I'm sure you do very well with it, and it's clear you've got a lot of knowledge. You come to this with, a lot of being able to educate people as to how the Starrag Group can help them with their machine solutions, and I think that's the important part for me here. I think coming across from what we're talking about, you are very well positioned to be able to talk to people about how they can get more out of their machines. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing you in Rorschach.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the MTDCNC Podcast, sponsored by Langley Alloys, specialists in a wide range of exotic materials for any application for all your engineering needs.